we're turning our attention to the NFL season, which is finally up and running after what seems like an interminable off-season. Mike Carlson is back with us. Mike, good morning to you. How are you getting on?
Well, can you keep the noise down a little bit? It's kind of bright this morning.
A late night?
Yeah, I'd gotten out of the habit, of staying up to watch the late game, but now it's back, and it was a good opening week, like as usual. It's National Jump to Conclusions Week, so
well, let's do that then.
Buffalo and Kansas City will meet in the Super Bowl, even though they're both in the AFC. That's the first conclusion. Also, just before we start, I'd like to point out that Thomas Tuchel, there is a job open at Nebraska.
Oh, yeah.
who fired their coach on Sunday after they lost to Georgia Southern. So the trip to Dublin did Scott Frost no good at all.
Well, it's certainly the Nebraska fans in the aftermath were definitely like, this guy's got to go. And he didn't last. So I don't know if that's going to be a good thing or a bad thing in future. If it's going to make everybody a little bit anxious about the trip to Dublin in future.
Yeah. I think they had such a good time, they won't matter. They won't care.
Well, the free booze always helps with that.
Absolutely.
It turns out. So a couple of jumping to conclusions. The Green Bay Packers not very good anymore. You know, we can maybe Aaron Rodgers is washed up. Dallas are cursed. Their QB is out. He's hurt his hand, and Jerry Jones immediately comes out and says, right, he's injured and he's going to miss who knows how long. And anyway, do you really come back after a hand injury as a QB in the same season and perform really well? Tom Brady's still good at football. Bill Belichick, what the hell's going on there? And as you said, the two best teams seem to be the two best teams. So did I miss anything significant?
Not really, except maybe the kickers. Kickers were either very, very good or very, very bad. As you might have noticed, the rookie kicker Cade York for Cleveland won the game with a 58-yard kick against Carolina in the Baker Mayfield Bowl, the Baker Bowl. They got a couple penalties with Jacoby Brissett, their quarterback, who put him into field goal range basically, and he kicked that after Baker had kind of come alive in the fourth quarter and set them on. And then you had the kicking hero of last season, McPherson from Cincinnati, miss an extra point that would have won the game in regulation, and then miss a field goal that would have won it in overtime. They had their long snapper, the guy whose job is to simply snap the ball back on kicks, was injured. They had to use a tight end as the long snapper. And you could see the way that the slightly slower, higher snap affected both kicks. The one at the end of regulation was blocked by Minkah Fitzpatrick. And Mike Tomlin strutting up the sideline, the coach saying, "Boy, can I coach?" You know? But otherwise, I think you've hit most of the high notes. And
we've talked about Bill Belichick with you over the years. What is happening with the Patriots at the moment? Because we talked briefly about this on the show last week, I think, where they don't have an official offensive coordinator, and that's okay because it's all about money. But actually, I mean, is it actually all just about money when you?
I don't think so. I think it's all about trust. As Bill gets older, I think he's always brought along lots of young coaches, and that's that seems to be working on their defense. Their defense had a pretty good game against Miami is supposed to be that incredibly high-powered offense now with Tyreek Hill, but offensively they didn't know what they were doing, and when they did know what they were doing the wrong things. It was very hard to watch because last year they performed very well with a rookie quarterback, and this year it looked like Mac Jones was not getting much of a chance to do anything. Their receivers were never open, which means either you don't have great receivers like some teams do, or you're not able to scheme them open. When they needed to be in a hurry, and occasionally when they went hurry up, they performed a little bit better. But when they needed to be in a hurry, they weren't. They were still running the ball on first down and second down, and then throwing, on third down when everyone expects it. Their line looked very slow. Their receivers, they looked like they wanted to play Dan Campbell, Detroit Lions, smash mouth football, but they don't have a DeAndre Swift to carry the ball. And I think I said earlier, I do a column on Patreon. I said much earlier in the over the summer, I didn't understand why he didn't bring in a young quarterbacks coach. Say he didn't have to be the offensive coordinator, but a guy just to work with Mac Jones, just to make suggestions as to what we're doing. When Buffalo lost Brian Dable to the Giants, they promoted Ken Dorsey. They brought in Joe Brady, who had been the coordinator in Carolina and before that at LSU. A guy like that, I thought, would help. Just bring some new blood in. And instead, you've got Patricia and Joe Judge running the offense, both of whom are not just failed head coaches, but failed badly head coaches. It was interesting that the Giants won and their special teams were great, and their special teams were lousy when Joe Judge, who by occupation is a special teams coach, was there. So, if I were an offensive player, I'm not sure how much faith I would have in those guys to create a good offense.
Yeah, okay. Now, there have been seasons where the Patriots start slow and Belichick's giant brain figures things out. So this is Overreaction Monday after the first weekend of the season, so that's okay. They're
absolutely, yeah. The Giants are going to go 17-0.
The Patriots won in 16. What about Green Bay, though? Because, Green Bay They gave away their best offensive weapon. They refused point blank to ever draft a receiver in the first round. They've got a very temperamental and genius quarterback, and they got absolutely annihilated by a divisional rival yesterday.
While he's certainly not temperamental while he's drinking ayahuasca tea. He's become one with the universe. But it was the very first play of the game for Green Bay that told you what was going to happen. They ran one of the rookie receivers, Christian Watson, deep. He got open, just as he had done in one of the preseason games I saw. Rodgers put the ball right over his shoulder on the money, and he dropped it. They would have been tied had he caught it and gone in for the touchdown. And the expression on Rodgers' face basically told you all that you needed to know. Now, they didn't have either of their starting tackles playing. So you could see that part of the game plan was for him to kind of get rid of the ball early or move in the pocket and then get rid of the ball. But none of that was working. He also didn't have Alan Lazard, who's supposed to probably be his quote unquote favorite receiver this year. So I'm willing to cut them a little bit of slack there. But you notice the difference in the game really was Justin Jefferson. This is what having a really true number one receiver does for you. Jefferson had 9 catches for 180 something yards, and on both of his touchdowns, on the play that set up a field goal, he was not only open, he was wide open. And how you can let a weapon like that stay open, I have no idea with Green Bay's defense. But you had a guy like Jefferson making plays. A.J. Brown, who went to the Eagles, had a huge game for Philadelphia. Devontae Adams, the Raiders lost, and Adams had a pretty good game, but nothing to make Green Bay kind of weep over that loss until they look at their own receivers.
They'll be fine though, because they have the ayahuasca are not influenced QB who is still like I guess we're not saying that there's an end point in sight for Aaron Rodgers just yet.
No, I mean he still looks so good throwing the ball. They just have to. They brought Tom Clements back, who's an old CFL quarterback who was a quarterbacks coach in Green Bay and offensive coordinator for a while. And you saw the two of them at one point just sitting on the sidelines, and Rodgers kind of in disgust, complaining to him, I guess, or whatever. I think when they get their tackles back, they'll be better.
Okay.
They can run the ball, which is a good thing for them, but they do need to sort that out.
What about the new Kirk Cousins and the fact that they now have a head coach who wants Kirk Cousins to throw the ball and be influential as opposed to just trying to bore you to death by defense?
Yeah, and their defense was surprisingly good too. Again, without their tackles, Green Bay. But yeah, I mean, it was brilliant to see. Like I said, Jefferson was open, wide open all the time, and he was being schemed open, and Green Bay was kind of you could watch as he moved across the formation. The corner on his side was letting him go because it wasn't his job. The safety was sort of letting him go because it probably wasn't his job. And nobody just stopped to look and think, well, that's Justin Jefferson. Maybe somebody ought to cover him. But they picked and tore the Green Bay defense apart when they needed to. So yeah, I thought that was a really good sign. And maybe some of the Kirk Cousins doubters will have a tough time this season. It's something that I actually picked the Vikings as a dark horse this week. And in a week that, a lot of upsets, my straight up picks were not doing that well. That was the one that actually pleased me, although, it's always hard to accept a sea change in a division like that. And I doubt it will be that in the end.
Yeah. Okay. We've got to talk about two other quarterbacks.
Sure.
It seems like officially Tom Brady's final season. That was all the stories coming out yesterday, that he'd actually gone on holidays with the family for a 10-day break in the middle of August, which is the first time he's ever been able to do that, which was, his sop to his wife, who famously was like, no, hang on, you're giving up football. And he's like, no, I'm actually going to go back and play one more season. So we'll see how that all plays out. But that was the gossip anyway from the New York Post pre-match.
Yeah.
And
Gisele's the most important person in the NFL right now.
And it looks like this is going to be his last season, but it started okay. They beat the Cowboys 19-3. How did Brady play, and what do we expect from him this season?
I think what we expect is probably another Super Bowl run, and he kind of made the most of what they had. Leonard Fournette, his running back, had a really good game, and they ran him a lot against Dallas. The Cowboys, of course, lost Dak Prescott during the game, which made their offense more problematic. But Brady looked sharp. He was throwing the ball with authority. Mike Evans appears to be his new favorite guy, but Julio Jones they were trying to work into the receiving mix, and that's probably a good sign for them. I think he looks fine. I don't think they'll have a problem. The offensive line held up pretty well. Micah Parsons got a couple of sacks, but Micah Parsons is Micah Parsons, and I think Tampa will be there in the end in the NFC. In fact, I'm trying to think of whether I had Tampa and Green Bay, I think, in the NFC Championship, and to Green Bay winning based on National Jump to Conclusions Week. I'd have Tampa winning that game right now. The Rams, of course, lost to Buffalo on Thursday, so they're now eliminated for the season.
Yeah, as are the San Francisco 49ers, who's...
were they awful?
Yeah.
Sorry about that, but yeah, I mean, in conditions that you wouldn't play a Division III football match in, it was pretty awful at Soldier Field, but they just couldn't put an offense together, and it could be Jimmy G time sooner rather than later in San Francisco. Trey Lance showed some good things, but when they lost Elijah Mitchell at running back, their whole offense kind of collapsed. They almost would have to move Deebo Samuel to full-time running back, and that would be a bad thing for them to do.
But Mike, Kyle Shanahan is the greatest football genius that has ever walked the planet. So why is it that everybody who uses his offense seems to be more successful using his offense than the creator and originator of the offense itself?
That's a very good question, which might be answered by the fact that, like many geniuses, he has too much faith in his own genius. Which is the whole Trey Lance situation. They fell in love with Trey Lance. Originally, they were, that he wasn't even the guy that they had. I think it was Mac Jones who originally they had their eye on, and they traded up to make sure they could get the quarterback they want in that draft. And then he watched Trey Lance and fell in love with his talent, which is, he's got a lot of potential. Things fell apart from there. The Niners, I think they looked good enough defensively against a team, where Chicago's main offense comes when Justin Fields can make plays that are in broken breakdown situations. So I think they'll be okay there, but they're going to have to put that offense together and hope that everybody stays healthy, which is, in past couple of years, they've had a lot of trouble with that.
That is the great lottery across the whole of the league. Dak Prescott was supposed to have an amazing season this year, but he's going to be out now for heaven knows how long. And also the Cowboys kind of stunk in that game either way, they do have injury problems. What is their offense? Who are their offensive stars going to be? Like,
yeah, and their line is a mess now, of course, with Tyron Smith going out, and then they signed Jason Peters to kind of, last minute 40-year-old injury prone replacement. A great tackle when he's healthy, even at 40, but that's not really going to work. And Zeke Elliott and Pollard didn't do very much, but I think that's partly a factor of the line. And the Giants won, as we said, and Saquon Barkley looked like the Saquon Barkley of old. So that may be a very positive side for them. I also like the idea that a coach with a minute left in the game, extra point for the tie, 2-point conversion for the win, goes for the win. I just think that's so refreshing when coaches play to win and don't play not to lose. And they got rewarded because Randy Bullock missed a field goal that could have won it for Tennessee. Randy Bullock looks kind of like the guy that you're sitting next to in the pub, and someone says, "Randy, you got to kick a field goal." He's just a second, and he fires down the shot and the beer, and then goes off onto the field. I think it was really good for the Giants. I like the fact that daring to win paid off for them.
Yeah, for a team who were supposed to be a complete joke, they all of a sudden are up and running and have a little bit of hype about them. The contract that the Ravens were supposed to do with Lamar Jackson didn't get done, and he is representing himself, which is very unusual. He seems to have turned down $250 million because it wasn't fully guaranteed at the time of signing. So this season is going to be one of those seasons where we watch a player back himself for the greatest riches that we've ever seen in potentially in any team sport, because if he backs himself and wins, then whoever he plays for will have to pay him. Now, more than likely they'll franchise tag him and have to pay him $50 million next year, and he'll be happy enough with that. But or maybe he'll refuse to play. I don't know. But he started the season pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, their first drive or whatever, he didn't start very well, and I tweeted out, every time he throws an incompletion, it's like $10 million go down off the deal. But then he came around and looked very good. And Devin Duvernay, who they've been waiting to sort of step up for a couple of years, stepped up with a couple of great catches for him as well. I think one of the things that really bothers me is how a lot of Twitter and columnists and stuff try to psychoanalyze people they don't know. Oh, well, he didn't get his contract, he's not going to play. He's going to just take it easy or something like that. It's exactly the opposite, I think. It's what you said. He's basically betting on himself, and he's going to show everybody how good he is. And the sad part is that teams are held to ransom in the salary cap era by the dumbest owner around. So the owner who's willing to sign a guy who's, facing a year-long suspension and give him a fully guaranteed contract, or the one who's willing to cave to Kyler Murray's temper tantrums over the summer and give him a huge contract. Now Lamar Jackson wants some of that, and quite justifiably. And I think the franchise tag is probably the most logical thing, because I think Baltimore, who are not generally a big spending team, they tend to sign their guys to longer term contracts, put the money up front so that they can get them for a slightly cheaper annual rate. I'm not sure that's going to fly with Lamar, but I'm also not convinced that Baltimore will worry that much about it. They may be in a situation where they can't get around it, but Lamar Jackson's such a special talent that you almost have to mold your offense around him. And I'm not sure there will a lot of teams that are going to be willing to make that kind of a change if that's what it comes to. I think, what we saw was going to be Baltimore at its best. Now it was against the Jets, so take it with a large grain of salt. And Joe Flacco was the quarterback on the other side, which gave it a little extra pinch of pepper as well. I think Lamar is going to have a good season unless he gets hurt. And this is the thing. A guy who's asking for a fully guaranteed contract is coming off a season where he missed half the season through injury. in a sport where most teams tend to protect their quarterbacks from injury, but Baltimore is willing to let him run with the ball and risk it again.
Yeah, no, it's all fair points. Mike, good stuff. Thanks a million for joining us. Cheers.
Thanks, Ger.
It's Mike Carlson giving us some thoughts on the NFL season, which is up and running after the first weekend of games.